So let's call this meeting to order.
Thank you.
Shall we call roll?
Sure. Jonathan Stone,
Here.
Bob Seward,
Here.
Ken Basinger,
Here.
Chair Metzen,
Here.
and Claire Met is not here.
First item on the agenda is the 2015 goals, 2015-2016 goals.
Thank you, Chair Metzen. For people who were at the May meeting, we did go through the 2015-2016 goals. Normally we do this in January, but because of the unique nature of kind of the long drawn-out process of obtaining our new members, we wanted to wait until the new board was here. So what I did is I took all the comments from the May meeting and I amended the draft goals that were in the May meeting, and this is what I came up with based on your comments. So we can go through it really quickly, and if there's any additional amendments we can make tonight, but I'd like to adopt it. So now then we can go from draft goals to adopted goals. And we'd like to keep a 2-year goals, and then we'll revisit it again in January.
Okay.
All right. So as you know, we do a lot in May for Preservation Month. We have our Preservation Award and then our proclamation that we use from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. One thing that people mentioned before is because we're a Heritage All-Star community, and what that is, that's a designation through the State Historic Preservation Office. It says we have many heritage groups, and ideally we should all be working together to raise awareness of heritage issues and preservation issues. And one thing we can do, the Historic Review Board, we're a nice kind of middle entity. We could help convene things. So one idea was potentially having a roundtable this next spring where we invite all the heritage organizations. It could be at an HRB night. Maybe we could put tables around and everyone could just kind of share things that they're doing in ways, and with the thought of how can we do more things that are collaborative. So it's kind of more of a show and tell and maybe even some, kick and punch afterwards. Then some more educational promotional events. We have been doing the photo contest, but one thing I wanted to let you know, Clackamas County Historical Society and the library are putting together these things called Pints from the Past. And actually the Willamette Falls Legacy Project is going to be the next topic just after the new year. So one thing we could look at doing as Historic Review Board is maybe do more of that, and maybe we could even potentially use certified local government grant money to pay, a couple $100 for a speaker if we wanted to sponsor a future Pints from the Past. So that's one idea we could do. And I like the idea of collaborating with as many organizations as possible to kind of, go ahead.
I just had a meeting with Claire at the Museum of the Oregon Territory, and they're actually, their next, one of their, I guess they're planning for it to be like a year-long exhibit, is to be sort of the building blocks of architecture.
Oh, great.
And so I know that her staff just went to the Architectural Heritage Center in Portland today to sort of see what resources, and apparently they're able and willing to donate artifacts for their exhibit. So that might be an interesting opportunity to further partner with Moot, especially since they'll be looking at, I don't remember which historic resources in Oregon City they were looking at, but including the house in Lake Oswego. That's currently the Carmen House, which is at the center of the sort of Supreme Court debate right now. But that might be an interesting opportunity to look at extending sort of like along the lines of history pub, but also actual in-person museum exhibits as well. That could.
I like that, and actually to number 2, we don't have necessarily something for the certified local grant. It's a 2-year grant cycle, and we're back up again. We're reviewing the next agenda item is the products of the last CLG, which was that plus the Ermitinger House. And so we're back up again. So education is a qualified expense. So education could be presenters, could be many things. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And, Oregon City does always keep $10,000 per biennium to support CLGs, so we can have up to $20,000 worth of projects. We don't have to, but we can. So that is one thing that we can take a look at what we can support through that process.
And especially if it's going to be an installation for up to a year, it might be a real opportunity for us to provide input on the exhibit, but also to sort of help it be successful.
I like it. And I don't know if all of you have met Claire Blaylock. She's the new executive director of the museum, and I've had a chance to work with her this last month and a half, and she has a lot of energy. So I'm very excited. So anyway, there's we don't necessarily have to, but there's an idea that I think every May we should continue with the Preservation Month. The heritage event or the education event doesn't have to necessarily be in May, but the idea that part of our job as the Historic Review Board is not just to review land use applications. I mean, I think that's our regulatory reason, but we also have general education as another kind of hat we can wear. So. Does anybody have any comment about the first item?
Know where we're going to have that historic pub.
Well, that's the thing we've been working. In Oregon City, it is hard to find a venue that has big enough and wide enough open area that 50 to 60 people can be there and also be drinking beer. So that is kind of a lot of our restaurants have tiny spaces, and so you can't get that projector and that speaker and have everyone, not craning their heads or looking around. So we found a niche for Oregon City that needs to be filled, which is a bigger venue for beer and events.
I think
because one thing we can't do as the city is we can't obviously support catering fees, but working with existing venues and saying work with us, we'll promote it, but we're bringing our projector and our microphone. We're not buying the beer.
Yeah.
Come down and look at the Feckin.
Ooh.
Tasting room. They've
And
opened
OCB
up
already has a big screen up already.
Which one?
OCB.
But can they fit 50 to 75 people?
Standing room only.
Yeah.
Standing room.
There's a new restaurant going in
You might
on Main
have
Street.
to bring your own
The
chairs.
Weinhardt Grill, I talked to the Weinhardt. Oh, no, another one.
No, another one.
Oh,
Yeah, the old
Mesa
living
Fresca.
room pub.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
well,
Mexican
they're in
restaurant.
Yeah. I saw their layout. They might be able to accommodate that many.
Yeah, it's the Mexican restaurants in the shopping center.
Nebiolo's fire
Yeah.
limit is 99, so I
But-
don't know what would end up being seated or anything. But
So I know Claire Blaylock and also Mo, our library director, are kind of in the search. And Singer Hill did the first one, and it was very successful to the point of it was too successful for the space.
Oh, great.
So that's the rub. We need somewhere bigger so people can learn about history and drink beer.
Not in that order, of course.
Whatever order you want. This summer, the Willamette Falls Legacy Project received a grant from the State Historic Preservation Office to do a 2-week archaeological dig in the Woolen Mill Foundation. And so they were out providing basically a trench in the north part, the open part. If you've been in the Woolen Mill, the non-covered area, that's the newer north elevation, or newer north addition. And looking, there were 3 1860s wood buildings that were there before that: the Barlow House, a saloon, and another building. They did an archaeological investigation to get a better understanding what was underneath the Woolen Mill, and so that's the presentation, is kind of what they found, why they were doing it, what lessons learned, how this can help inform kind of future projects on the site. So, yeah, and there were 6 volunteers from the Oregon Archaeological Society who volunteered their efforts for the 2 weeks.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so that's going to be sometime in the new year. So that's one of the history pubs. So I think I like Jonathan's idea of kind of maybe working on the architectural aspect with the museum. I think there's a lot of opportunities for providing partnerships with our local heritage organizations.
what is our process if we wanted to support that effort financially? In any way?
So going down to number 2, so the Certified Local Government Grant is really the way we have grants in Oregon City. So for preservation, they happen on a biennium basis. They are not competitive. So they're basically, as Oregon City is a certified local government, which is, it never keeps changing. I'm just going to do a round number. There's about 30 in the state that have met qualifications by the State Historic Preservation Office. We have a preservation ordinance. We have a board that meets. We have, the checkbox of requirements. Once you're certified local government, you get access to these federal pass-through grants. And so they are only for qualified grants. So it could be survey and inventory, which the majority of what we've done in the last decade has been the CLG grants for all of our survey and inventory, National Register nominations. It can be used for construction projects for National Register listed properties, which is what we did for Ermitinger House. We put some money into that. It can be used for education materials. Those are kind of the main ones. And so there are some things that aren't eligible. So when we get down to things we want to do, we can pass those and talk to the state and say, oh, you can do this, but this is a little bit on the gray area. So maybe if you think about it this way, you'll be more qualified. But so the idea is this community development department says they will match, 1-for-1 for the grant. So if we want, we can go up to 20,000, but they'll match it. So if they put in 5, we'll get 5 from the state. So on this end, the certified local government grant is due in the spring. So we probably wouldn't get access to that money probably till the beginning of summer. But once we get that, we could use that money to pay for education materials, be there speakers or conferences or whatever we want to do education-wise. And that may be
Can it be more than one program in the same grant?
Yep. We could say our grant is for this block of programs, and this is a theme, and this is what we're doing, and this is how many hours we're going to need, and this is the kind of person we need to do it, and this is our fee, which we're going to look for. So, but yeah, that's what we have to spell it in the grant, enough detail. So that's something to be thinking about, in which we'll probably be having more conversations. But we've kind of inventoried everything in the city, and we did the National Register nominations. I'm supportive of using it for education this next biennium. I think we're definitely due, and I think that's one piece of what we have not really put our money into that we could do more of.
That would be great.
All right, so keep thinking this winter of education opportunities. So number 3, this has been on the list for the last 4 years, but we need to do it, which is when Diana Painter came, and she was a consultant that did the citywide survey, she did notice there were some landmarks that had irretrievable loss of integrity. I mean, to the point where the building division didn't catch that they were coming in with changes. And so some of the landmarks have completely been altered to the point where they're not even be recognized as an historic building. And so there's a point where the kind of delisting them helps in the sense that it kind of honors the fact that we are acknowledging existing conditions, and it tightens up what we are regulating. And so we are a little more true rather than just saying we have this legal ability and we're not going to give it up, even though for the most part because of our mistakes as a city not catching any either building permits that the owner did 3 owners ago or non-permits. You have irretrievable loss of integrity, and you'll never get it back. Do we necessarily need to be regulating these as historic buildings? So it's just a process we need to go through. There, it's hearings. We'll have to notice the neighbors. So,
how many buildings are there?
I think maybe 6. So it's just something that we need to do.
That's
Okay.
That's a lot. Actually.
6 out of 86. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When do you think we could get that together? I mean, is this a January sort of thing?
Whenever there's time to put the packet together, write the staff report, notice the neighbors. And I think the reason why it stayed on is it's never the thing that needs to get done tomorrow and the deadline. So that like most things that don't have a deadline, it keeps getting pushed back. So if this is something the board wants more than not, we can create a deadline for it. And it's really up to the board to say we want this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Is there any reason not to do that?
Well, there is in the sense that we may not look. We get a better view of a heritage organization when people say, "Well, why is that house designated? That doesn't make any sense. Therefore, I'm questioning why you're regulating my house because this one clearly is not." Whereas if you say these are the ones that these houses have integrity and they're contributing status compared to no. So
I think we should go through the process and check the box, get off the list.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be great.
How about can we put maybe a hearing for March of next year?
I like it.
Okay. That'll give time through the winter and putting it all together.
That would be March 22nd. Is that right? Yes.
Oh, well, that is spring break, but
March 22nd.
Okay. So number 4, we have inform HRB on issues related to the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. I did not put an update, but I might as well just here provide you a brief overview of where we are today. Not much has changed in October. As you know, in June of this year, the collaborative of Mayor Reed, Snøhetta, and Dialogue was chosen to be the designers for the schematic design of the Riverwalk, which is looking at the whole Riverwalk at a schematic design level, not a construction drawing level. And then they would then move forward after that to construction drawings for phase 1, not knowing today where or how big phase 1 is. The process is the goal to lead us to where phase 1 should be, because it should be catalytic. And we have about $18 million between the original state's $5 million, the Metro $5 million match for their bond measure, and the $7.5 million from the state that was received this summer, plus a little bit of extra money.
Still needs a match, right?
A federal match. So some of the goal is we know we probably can't build this whole thing at once. And we know we need to be catalytic to start raising that property value behind it. And so as we start the schematic design process, we'll be looking at the whole thing, but we're really asking the design team, you're these international experts, how do we build something amazing in phase 1 that's catalytic? And so, of course, the easy thing to build is the first section right at the bend in 99E near Water Avenue, which is not very catalytic, but it's easy, right? You can easily build, an eighth of a mile or 400 yards of this, but it's not going to be catalytic. And the most amazing part is the very, very edge of the PGE Dam. Mm-hmm. But how do you get people all the way through the site into the PGE Dam through maybe a 5 or 6 or 8 year process? So once it's built, so that's kind of the nut we're asking them to crack. Is we know we want it. Well, and also the state legislature requires the first $5 million to be ending at a prominent view of the falls, not the most prominent view, but we definitely have to end at a public view of the falls. So that is kind of the big thing we're asking them. We are a little bit slowed in this summer. We tried to scope the whole schematic design in one gigantic mother of all scopes, and that realized we couldn't do this. The site was too complicated, so we've kind of peeled back, and we're really just doing a phase 1 and phase 2 scope, which is kind of looking at the bigger site, and then we're going to be moving on to programming, asking the community, what do you want to do on this site? So there'll be public engagements events just after the new year. So then we'll regroup, and then the idea is kind of further phasing after we get through each chunk, so we know exactly what we're going to be asking them to spend their money on, because I can tell you they're not cheap. So we're just trying to, like this site is always, what do I need to know today to get me to the next step? And then you get to the next step. What do we need to know now? Because this site, if you try to do everything at once, you're going to spend all your money. So I'm happy actually where we are today in October, but it has been a very iterative process, realizing we can't scope everything and stay within budget and have contingencies and do all that. So we will be soon, I would say, in the next 6 weeks, hearing a survey being sent out, and then a lot more communication, and then the public engagement event, which will probably be in early February, I believe, in Oregon City, talking about programming. How do we want to use the site? And that'll kind of start feeding back in. Actually, the other news I wanted to add on is there was a opportunity to receive a grant from Metro. It's their Community Planning Development Grant, which is paid for out of construction excise tax. So every time a new house is built, there's a tax that's paid to help with both planning in the concept plan areas and also planning within regional centers and urban cores, because we want to make sure we're both making sure we're utilizing our land appropriately when we expand the boundary, but we're also not ignoring our inner core and making sure we get infill. So Oregon City is a regional center, and Willamette Falls project is that perfect example of one of those inner core projects. And so we were able to partner with Falls Legacy LLC, the property owner, And we are doing, we're realizing they need to do a refined plan, and we need to know more information about utilities and gaps, and to understand this finance plan if we're going to go through with federal request federal funding. And so we think if we combine our forces and our scopes and our budget, we'll get a product better than the two. So we are moving forward with a joint refined master plan and development opportunities study for the site, kind of using $450,000 from Falls Legacy LLC and $450,000 from public monies, and trying to move forward with that. So I really am excited because the Riverwalk's going through schematic design. The property owner is refining their plan and getting better understanding, and the crucial part is, how do those two fingers connect? How do we make sure the Riverwalk is catalytic for the economic development, and that the economic development can feed and inform the Riverwalk? So we're really excited because these two things can march together, and even to the point where we might even have a joint land use application with the Riverwalk and the refined master plan. It won't be a detailed plan because, of course, they don't know exactly who their tenants are going to be or buildings are going to be. So you're not going to see like a campus plan with the buildings going to be like, but you'll be able to have a better understanding of the public spaces, the infrastructure, and then even a better understanding of what's penciling today, what's not, what's the gap, what's the big problem, where's parking going, where our municipal parking garage maybe, is it on-site, is it off-site, how are we parking this thing, how are we using all of our multimodal ways of getting to and from the site, all those things that everyone's kind of wrestling about, that's going to be looked at during this joint application.
So this is much bigger than when we originally talked about multimodal.
Yeah, so it's a little bit bigger. So it's the idea of now we can join forces and kind of hopefully get a product better than if we kind of work separately. So we are currently just meeting with the property owner, trying to see how exactly you share scope, schedule, budget, and product with the public on these kind of, there's definitely things that have a lot of public interest and requirements, and things that are very, very private needs, and then there's this gray area in the middle. So we're working through all those issues. But I think in the long run, it'll really propel both us for a federal grant, but also really understand what the property owner needs to do in a phased development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity under number 5 to use CLG grant to fund
Oh, yeah,
that
for
portion?
the website.
That would be a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's unfortunate timing, end of summer, because it'd be nice to get an intern in to.
Well, I don't know if the CLG plant could pay for an intern, though.
Oh, it has to be.
Because it has to be kind of a qualified
Okay.
person. But the CLG was able to pay for a web designer. A graphic designer. So I'll look into see what we can do with that. I'll ask some questions on the website.
Last we spoke, it wasn't a complicated item, just one that took time that you didn't have right now. I thought about asking you, if you want to do overtime, but that doesn't necessarily sound appealing either.
I'm already doing overtime.
Okay.
It's part of the deal.
All right.
And the last option is 6, and we always have policy discussions. And that's an opportunity, especially when things come up and land use applications, and it's kind of you can kind of see from the board there's maybe a different opinion or some different shades of gray on opinions about items that may not be spelled out very specifically in our design guidelines for new construction or alterations. As you know, in historic preservation, there's kind of these sideboards, the not faking history. We're not here to create colonial Williamsburg, but we also want compatible buildings. And every community kind of can figure out where they fit within these sideboards. And so there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, but I think when there is kind of disagreement, a deliberate process to maybe bring a policy issue up, notice at a meeting, allow community members to come in if it's a bigger issue. And I know Breezeways was one in the last couple rounds. So that's an opportunity. If there's other policies that we want to add on, or if you're at maybe the decision's being made, or kind of after decisions being made, you think about it and come back the next meeting and say, I think we really need to talk more about X, as these seem to be more of an issue, and as we go on for new land use applications, we can add that on to policy discussions. And that would be done kind of at the 6 o'clock time period And then I can bring in a little bit of preparation about what other communities are doing, kind of what the professional direction is, and kind of to provide you a little bit more background. And then if you want to move forward, the kind of way to completely finish it is if you want to move forward and provide kind of a noticed policy addendum, we can always do that. So I'm not saying that everything has to happen that way, but if there's a point where the board's really decided they all agree on some policy issue, we can amend our policies, but we would go through a notice process and come up with wording, and then we can create a notice to provide general direction in the future. So right now I have breezeways, but if there's another one, and then let me know, especially just even through the year, and then the board can just have consensus, say, yep, we agree, let's add that on.
Yeah. Is there another item that anyone thinks we need to address?
Not right now.
Not presently.
No. Okay. Excellent. Should we move on to PC 15-214?
Sure. If I could have actually a motion to have this adopted from draft to
The
adopted.
draft. I'll do that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Jonathan Stone?
Hey.
Bob Siebert?
Aye.
Ken Basinger?
Aye.
Chair Metzen?
Aye.
Motion carries. We now have adopted board goals.
Just in time for 2016.
I know.
That's right.
Okay. PC 15-214.
So I added this. It's attached as PDFs, and then just want to let you know I was having a little trouble at the end of the day today printing these out in a way they should be read. So these are the 3 National Register nominations that we just recently went through with our last CLG grant, the Carnegie, the Promenade, and the Elevator. As part of our grant program, we were able to hire a graphic designer to put together a little pamphlet. And they should actually be read as two-sided 11 by 17, and they'll be folded. So you'll open it up, and the idea is we'll have a bunch printed out, and the public can grab them or at the library and such. So just know that I was unable to get that all laid out for you. But in your mind, think that you're seeing a double-sided 11 by 17 folded pamphlet. So I'll talk about the nominations first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the homeowners packet. I have the InDesign files for these. This was done in InDesign. So if there's any changes that need to be made, I can easily make them. So
Remove the hyphenations on titles.
I concur.
show me. I haven't even.
Any of them, actually. Well, the ones that have blue titles, or headings, rather.
Can you show me just so I can see it?
Sure. I like this one. On that historic properties packet.
Actually, don't
being
have
in
mine.
historic district, raise my
Says,
tax.
Oh,
hyphen.
hyphenated. Got it.
Just an update to the paragraph style, and he'll
Yeah.
be in working order.
And I've noticed there's one that's justification that's off. So on that.
There is one that's a full justification
You
instead of left.
find hyphenation option in the type menu.
In InDesign?
Yeah.
Okay.
But all said and done, this looks really
it
nice.
sure does.
Yeah, so I'm about to send off the 3 nominations to the library and Public Works, and because it's just PDF, they can make their copies. And I think the idea is to have them available at City Hall and many places, and and then I asked for the library, I asked our librarian to add a little 4 sentences about the addition, so she did that on the library. But because we have InDesign, we can always amend it at a later date.
So something to think about, especially on the, the Carnegie, more especially the McLaughlin Promenade and the municipal elevator, is the layout's not too complex on those to think about a format that would fit into a brochure stand. Just a little stretching and pulling, and all of a sudden this is now housed in the elevator in the brochure rack.
Oh, as a
Is it, well, I would say trifold, but trifold meaning
Yeah,
it could even be an 11 by 17 folded into 6
Okay.
6
Okay, yeah.
folds, right? You know, but
I think our goal was definitely not to, we thought trifold was too small.
Yeah.
Like, we definitely wanted to have a lot of text. So if you, but yeah, let me know if you think that there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
That's still readable.
The other item I had was the white square that binds the picture is off on the back of the McLaughlin Promenade. And
Say that again, the white square?
yeah, most of the photos have a white square that's set
Frame.
inside the photo, a frame.
Frame.
Yeah.
And
That
this
one
one
does
is
not.
off.
The lower photo, the frame is there, but it's slid down. It's out of
Yeah.
place.
And for that one specifically, I almost wonder if it would look awesome with a map. Rather than this pixelated photo, a map of where the promenade starts and stops.
it's a nice idea. I like that.
I like that.
Since it's the only one that travels
linear.
across distance.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then so the homeowners packet, the idea is, also, you'll see there's some, you open it up, there's kind of a USGS map. The idea is that it's laid out where that's kind of in the middle, and then inserts, 11 by 17 insert pages would be put in there. So you kind of have the master kind of two 11 by 17 pages. You open it up and you have that map. And then I also attached kind of a template A and a template B, and the idea is additional information that we want to provide would just be slit into that in the middle. So this is we over time always mailed hard copies of kind of a lot of this content in a stapled way in a letter. When we received from the tax assessor that we had a new property owner for an historic property, and that this is a new version. What I'd like to do is to work with the Kanema and McLaughlin neighborhood to see if we can print out and hand deliver all of them. I don't know, or maybe in this next round we might have additional money to mail them out. So I'd like, in the first run, everyone gets this, and then you'll get it when you buy a new house, but then have it available and
There's one other step. And maybe we can get some help from the county on this, because the assessor's office does have people whose first job in the morning is to turn on the computer and log on to RMLS and look for new listings. And every new listing of historic property should have this site while it's listed.
yeah.
We can't do it by ourselves
Why
necessarily
can the tax
because we
assessor
don't
do it?
have access to that data, but the county is doing that.
How did so the county can get into?
The county has, county
They can get-
belongs to RMLS.
And they can
And
get
they've
in-
hired people to specifically go online and look for new listings. They have their own reasons for doing that, and they have to do with revenue, you can
Right.
believe me, and it's an onerous thing that they're doing.
Right.
But we could maybe get some benefit out of it if we could somehow get them to partner
Maybe we
with
can
us.
talk offline on this, because I'm intrigued, but I'm also wary. So let's
The
talk more
reason
about
that
it.
they're doing it is they've discovered that many property sellers will say brand new kitchen,
Right.
just spent
Permits,
$40,000 on the kitchen, and so forth. And the county wants to tax that, not just now,
But they do,
but maybe going back 5 years.
right. But then, if you didn't get permits,
Oh,
then
they'll use that
that's
as
how
part of
they.
the
If you,
assessment.
it isn't just if you didn't get permit, it's just the disparity between the official market value in the county records and what the seller now says it's worth in his real estate listing. And there have been cases where a home seller goes to closing expecting to carry home equity from his sale, and is then told that the county has first claims on 25 grand of back property taxes for 5 years.
But how does that serve this board?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay.
What would serve this board is,
It's the data.
as long as they have somebody with the assignment to look on RMLS and see what property listings are coming up, if it's a historic property, all they'd have to do is tell us that.
Well,
They have a person already being paid
right.
to do
so
that.
The key is the intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and Oregon City and passing money. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying I'm
Oh,
intrigued.
okay.
But it's a funny enough,
And-
paying another jurisdiction staff is very complicated.
But what benefit
We
would
don't-
that bring to this board to know when a property is up for sale?
To hand out the packets.
The packet should be in the hands of the selling
Potential
lister,
purchaser.
the listing realtor.
Sure.
And from
Well, in
a
which case
legal
every-
standpoint, the realtor is obligated to have that, but rarely actually can get it.
Well, maybe not the packet, but I have to say the one thing that has been very helpful.
Come on, come join us.
It's at 6.
Clarinet, present.
Take the roll.
That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Just
So,
note that
anyway.
Clairement is now.
It-
So
Wait,
we can talk about it
Chanel
more,
Vice
but
Chair.
I just want to give just a brief anecdote. And we're going over the second part of the packet. It's okay, which is the homeowners education packet and the National Register graphic design. When we added the survey forms to the website, they actually have their own web page, and so if you're just Googling 1137 Madison, it'll go to Google return because we have a name of a page,
And it's a
so
first page result, too.
and it's
good.
it's amazing, and so I get more people who say realtor and people that are just looking that already know it's a designated historic, and it's really just the sense of we have a survey form. Whereas part of me is wondering, if we go to this map based, we kind of lose that great Google result when we do it. So part of me wants to keep maybe that as a default that's always there, and then we just have this other great option. But I'm surprised on how helpful that is when people just put the address in,
Yeah.
because they're just everyone's searching to see what's going on in the house they want to buy, so they're just googling an address.
Yep.
So guess what? It's historic. So.
Very nice.
All right. So I'll take all that. Feel free to email me. This has not really been proofed a lot through this fall. So take all your comments about graphic design, the hyphenated. I myself, or I may even have some in my office help me get it all together. But I think our goal is to continue to probably in the new year work with McLaughlin and Kenema on getting it out. And then I'll work with the library and the public works about printing that. And then, Jonathan, I like your idea of the trifold, so we'll probably just move forward with this half one, but maybe show me, maybe after the meeting, kind of how you would lay it out. And then what's nice thing about having the InDesign files is you can swap, and then suddenly you have pamphlet A and pamphlet B, and we can use both.
Okay, great. And I think that's the agenda for this evening.
Yeah, so just so you know, we actually have a land use hearing next month. 151 Malala Avenue as you move up the hill, actually south of our offices. They have a 1960s, for the time being I'll call it that, carport that they are looking at enclosing for a massage office. It's a home occupation. The person who lives there is that. And so the garage is kind of tacked in on the back, so it has kind of almost this shed roof, very, modern lines, but they're really just enclosing the carport, keeping the same roof and adding 2 massage rooms. And so while I could technically do that as a staff level, because it's technically an alteration, it really isn't, because it's a carport going to a more substantial habitable structure. So I told them, for a very small fee, let's send it up to the board, and the board can review it. But they're definitely looking at kind of that balance of they're not creating a new, I mean, they still have the bones of this, 60s carport, but they're going to be doing lap siding and getting some wood windows in. But I think, like a lot of these historic buildings, the more we can add value in some of these outbuildings, and especially them looking at a home occupation use, I think is a great way to invest in the building. So.
Yeah.
So when you drive up Malalan, you'll see that dark brown carport. You'll see it next month with the proposed walls and a door and a window and new massage opportunities.
Excellent.
Which we all need. at one
Which we
time.
all need,
That's right.
so, and they're very nice. And then I do not have any new grant applications, so I wouldn't be surprised us getting them starting. We did have a, I know we didn't notice this, I don't think we can, would the board still move to keep that process we had, was you didn't have to wait till January of each year to take advantage if you had previously had an application. I mean, that may be moot this year, but that's what we did last year. So that's still out there.
Okay. Jonathan requested to speak.
Sure.
I had to push the button.
That's
Sorry.
it.
No, it's not it. No, we already know. Derek already pushed
Yeah.
another button earlier on accident. But this was intentional. November 9th, Monday, is a open house for tourism strategy plan, which the Oregon City Tourism Council has sponsored, and a key component of that tourism strategy plan is how to leverage our historic resources for tourism economic development, and sort of reassuring, not surprising, but good in the sense that after a whole bunch of minds got together, we reaffirmed that heritage is our most important asset as a city, and that we need to double down on that, and that requires investment as well. And so from a historic building standpoint and a sort of historic neighborhood, historic districts, those are all sort of positive assertions. And so November 9th, Monday at 6 p.m., Doug LaPlaca, who is the CEO of Visit Bend, will be presenting on that topic in terms of how Oregon City can move forward with actionable steps in developing its tourism infrastructure around heritage.
Where's it located?
At the Museum of the Oregon Territory.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan.
Cool.
It's great.
Anything else for the good of the...
What was that date again, November
9.
November 9th,
9th?
Monday.
Anything else for the good of the order? No? With that, we're adjourned.
We have some salads in the back.